Welcome to Black on Black Conversations about us, with us, for the world. I'm your host, Julian Michael, and I'm super excited again for my guest today. We've known each other for a very long time. Back when I was in college, trapped in the closet, we were staying up till all hours of the morning watching R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet together. We spent a lot of time in the New York clubs and also in the New York Chipotles. And now my friend is all grown up. He's an educator. He's an administrator in New York City. I'm very excited to welcome Jean-Robert Andre. Thank you for being here, my man.
It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So my first question is really just tell me a little bit about how you grew up.
How I grew up. I am the product of two Haitian immigrants who both their families had to flee Haiti from the dictatorship. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, in a pretty diverse neighborhood. It was kind of the second to last stop on the F train.
Wow.
But went to school my whole life in Manhattan. So I've always been a lifelong commuter. Went to school in the same place that my mom taught at, just retired 41 years later. So
what is it like going to school with your mom?
Oh, it was great because I could just go to her office and be like, I need $20. And give it to me. But my brother and I had two very different experiences with that exact same thing. My brother is 3 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, everything you do at school reflects on me. So,
mm-hmm.
And I took that to heart. So I was like, great, I'm just going to find the nerdiest kids and just be their best friend and not do anything. And my brother was like, It doesn't mean anything to me. So, he would see my mom in the hallway and like literally turn around and walk the other way, would not have it. The worst thing that ever happened was my brother. It's a private school on the Upper East Side. So like all the things. And they had a trip planned to Paris, like a cultural exchange program that they had with a school in Paris. Last minute, for this 10-day trip, last minute, the teacher had to back out. And the only person on my brother's trip, the only teacher who could go was my mom. So that was a rough 10 days for both of them. But yeah, so we moved to Westchester, actually, got a backyard. That was nice. When I was in 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that having gone to school in Manhattan, my mom worked there. We spent more waking hours in school than at home. So I rarely had roots where I lived. I didn't have any friends. I had very few friends in Queens. Didn't really spend that much time with them. I had very few friends in Westchester because I didn't go to school there. All my friends lived in the city, like downtown or Upper West Side. So I just spent a lot of time there with them. We were the type of kids that on a Friday night, we'd either go to the movies or hang out in someone's house and read Harry Potter to each other or something. It was we were just really it's really those kind of kids. But
living that wild life.
Yeah, it's it didn't help that my mom was like, you have to, in order for us to pick you up from the train station, you can't take a later train than 10 o'clock. So right when my friends were like, time to read more Harry Potter or whatever we were doing to turn up, I'd be like, oh, I gotta go, and I would, so yeah. So but I loved my social life. I had a really good group of friends. I when we got the influx of like downtown kids that transferred from the K-8 schools into the uptown schools, like all of a sudden downtown New York opened up to us, and we had friends who lived in Soho and the Village, and I like discovered Manhattan through them. Essentially, it's cool, like artsy kids downtown.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, that's how I grew up.
tell me about your life now.
I made it to the borough I never thought I'd live in, which is Brooklyn. My fiance has had his eye on Brooklyn. He lived in Hell's Kitchen before and dragged me kicking and screaming from Astoria, where I had lived for 11 years, to Park Slope, Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
We got a free baby stroller upon moving in, and I'm just kidding, but it's like there are babies everywhere. There are literally babies everywhere. It's a very sort of family area.
Sounds awful.
But it is. It's all right. I mean, we yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's very like it's very like brownstone area of Brooklyn, so it's really pretty and whatever. It's nice. We're by the train, so I was like a good 10-15 minutes walk from the train in Astoria, so it's really nice. Like that was a major upgrade. And yeah, and I mean, I've spent the semester teaching from home with COVID, but work in Union Square area between Union Square and Astor Place, which is a nice, easy commute from here. And I do diversity work at the school. I also teach middle schoolers science, bike ride when I can.
Mm-hmm.
My family is still in Westchester, so I get to see them a little bit. My brother just had a baby, which is exciting. So yeah, that's
his woman had the baby, not him.
Sorry, he is a proud parent. I'll say that.
I want to get back to the diversity work, but you slipped in fiance, so I actually want to pick on that first. Tell me more about. Yay! Congrats.
Thank you.
When you posted it on Facebook, it was very cryptic, and all of your friends thought that you'd actually just hauled off and got married. So I was upset. I'm actually glad to learn that it's just a fiance situation. But tell me more about your fiance.
So he is. So we met on Tinder.
So this is a nice wholesome relationship.
This is a nice wholesome thing. Yeah, I was coming off. I had not been in a relationship for so long, and I like that summer school ended. I was like, this will be the summer that I get married. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to go on so many dates and like do the whole thing, get back in the game. And I did, and they were pretty awful. It was just not, it was like not fun. I don't know. It was hard. And as I went on a couple dates, I was like, oh, this is lame. And then of course, like the last ditch effort, I was like, this is the last one. September's coming. Like school's going to come back. I'm gonna have no time for anything. And met up with this this guy in Brooklyn. So far from both of us, but of course, Christian and Brooklyn, it's like match made in heaven. So he, and I like, this is, date one learning that he is a planner, which makes this wedding situation so much easier. So he planned out this whole thing. And we had our first date in Williamsburg. He works in advertising. He is from Oklahoma originally. Had always had his eyes set on living in New York. And our first date was so like, I don't know, we got to a place of like such vulnerability and like real getting to know each other, which was great. Like it was really great. It was a nice little breath of fresh air, and it lasted forever. Like we went to dinner, and then we went for a walk, and then we went to this bar and went to this other bar. And it was super fun. And then it was just very kind of frequently seeing each other from there. Though we didn't, that was July 29th was our first date. We didn't officially become like boyfriends until like November, December. So, because I'm a commitment phobe, so I was like very cautious and whatever. And then, but we just had so much fun together all the time. And then here we are almost 3 years later. Oh my goodness. And on my way to getting married, I guess.
Are you excited about it?
I am. Like we had a few months between the putting the ring on it and the wedding planning starting. We had a very like COVID engagement. We had the rings. We had gone ring shopping earlier in the year, or years from your academic years. So September to August is a year. So like October of the last academic year, we had gone ring shopping. I don't really know how people buy rings without doing it together. Like there is so much nuance in that. Like there's so much like specific tastes, of which like his and my tastes are very different. So I'm glad we did it together, settled on these rings. And then they were just like hidden in our apartment for a really long time. Because we were planning on getting engaged in Mexico for spring break. And
you guys were, I'm sorry, planning on getting engaged.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he does not like surprises. So I had to kind of work around that. Because like, listen, it makes sense. It makes sense though, because I was like, I don't want for you to pop the question after we're like hiking for 6 hours and our Instagram posters, me just like dripping in sweat, like looking like crap for our engagement photo that's everybody's going to see. So I was like, I get that. He's like, I want to be dressed up nice. I want to be prepared. I want to be like groomed. These are important pictures. So.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's your man. I love it. So talk to me more about the diversity work that you do.
I had been doing aspects of DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion work in my school. So this is my 10th year at the school. And then 2 years ago, the board realized that the programming that we had was just too big. Like the person that was running it was doing it too well. Like she was running diversity stuff, sustainability stuff, service learning things. And so they realized that in order for the school to move forward on any of these initiatives that we're doing and like things we're trying to meet, we had to create an office. We had to create a special office where we can house all these things, because before it was kind of a coordinator model. And a very like council heavy, everybody is part of this work, which means nobody was doing it except this one. So, so they, and I applied, there were 4 internal applicants. I applied, got the job. So I've been with the title of Dean of Equity and Inclusion for 2 years. It's been a trip. It's a whole other like mind frame and skill set that I'm like, I spent 13 years in the classroom perfecting that skill set and mind frame. And now it's a bit of a different one being an administrator. So I'm still in that, like getting my sea legs, but trying to do the best I can kind of place.
What is your goal in your position at your school?
I think this summer has reified and like shifted a few of the goals. We've had a summer of, amidst Black Lives Matter protests, students have also begun to do very public activist kind of movements. And across the nation, there's been this Black at Instagram account, like wave, including almost all independent schools in Manhattan and New York, boarding schools, private schools across the country, colleges. Our college has an account. So that's just like directly hearing student voices on their experiences in the day-to-day at our school and seeing just how much of the programming that we have planned does not match with a day-to-day lived experience of kids of color, especially Black kids. So goal is really like, I mean, it feels weird to say, but like, because it feels obvious, but prioritizing the health and safety of Black and brown and BIPOC students in our school because they're not getting that. They're not feeling safe. They're not feeling healthy. And really, I mean, really, it's like transforming the culture, like having white folks buy into anti-racism and understand that anti-racism is just as much their job and initiative and duty as it is we often hear of diversity work and then the white folks say that's not for me. But understanding, I mean, I said this in the middle of a parent meeting over Zoom, but like it's being said a lot that like racism is not a Black person problem. We didn't invent it. It's a white person problem. They got to fix it. And so getting the community, which is a predominantly white institution, it's a high tuition paying school with pretty affluent families whose money drives the school, like getting the shift in community to understand the work that needs to be done and how to do the work is kind of where we are right now. So there's a lot of conversations with the board, with the administration, with students and alumni and parents, to figure out how we're gonna do this together.
When you think about just like being Haitian American in your position with the clientele that you have, when you think about being in a relationship with a very particular boy from Oklahoma, and I know there are not too many Haitians in Oklahoma, so I'm assuming that there's a difference of culture between the two of you. How do you find your own just sort of place of respite or sort of understanding, just to recharge your own battery to do the work that you do and just kind of live within your own skin?
There's something about having conversations about race or about social justice or about what's happening in the news when it comes to identity that like that recharges my battery, as long as it's like productive, as long as it's like a conversation where we're both really engaging and learning and pulling up things online and like talking about things. And that's really like, that's kind of like what happened on date one, right? With Christian. But for me, so being able to engage with him on that level and process some of what's happening for me has been one way to recharge. I think it's been hard because my experience as the son of two Haitian immigrants that like they came here because their families were part of the military, and the political conflicts within the country created a situation in which it wasn't safe for them to stay. But that implies we were in positions of power in the country. And so what my parents and family brought with them, and what they brought with them when they came to the country, my mom will tell you that her understanding of race and racialization was different in Haiti than it was here. She was racialized differently here than she was over there. And so my being racialized here and carrying what she's teaching me from Haiti and her process created a whole different learning moment for me of who I was. We have light skin privilege. A lot of my family are white passing, a lot of her cousins and my cousins. And there is issues of class and classism that come up in our conversations about Haiti and home, and racism that looks totally different when you boil down the stories from my parents, and and so this isn't really answering a question of how it's recharging, because it does kind of provide me a really conflicting and conflicted lens through which I'm approaching this work. The story of Caribbean immigrant Black folks to the United States and the Northeast, for example, is different than the story of African American folks who didn't who for like whose story goes back to America for generations.
Sure.
And is tied to slavery, and the narratives are different in some ways, but and even just identity. Anyways, let me go back. Being able to have space to like dive into that and pack that and voice that, that's been one way for me to recharge my battery while also making sense of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right, obviously, that the just trajectory of migration is different, and that causes different understandings of how we see each other. But there's something about being in this space, about specifically being Black in America, I think, that levels that playing field, because no one who doesn't value your humanity fully is going to take the time to learn that history. They're going to treat you in a certain kind of way. What does being Black mean to you?
Being Black means being part of a diaspora, being part of a global network with roots around the world of folks who come from Africa and African traditions, and how that's morphed as it's translated into Haiti and Cuba and the United States and France and colonialism and all of these things, right? But there's this underlying like attachment that we all have to each other based on a way back common history. And what actually unites us about that is about finding that history and relearning that history and owning that history that's been very much warped and twisted and stripped from us in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I think being Black is a number of things. There are cultural ways of being Black. There are pop culture ways of being Black. There are intellectual ways of being Black, and there's any number of different things. It's both very specific and also incredibly hard to pin down at the same time.
Yeah. What does America mean to you?
America. America is this Marvel movie of like, it's literally Captain America. It's like this guy with a shield. It's like coming in and just single-handedly like saving everything. And it's like this figment of our imagination. It's completely made up. Because it's not like America is indigenous people who lived here. But if we take it to like America with its name of America, we're talking about like really, really hard history, like really tragic and really sad and really hard truths to confront. But America is and continues to be, because of power and exploitation and imperialism, it continues to be the land of opportunity. It continues to be a place in which freedom is like in our mission statement, though it rarely ever shows up in real life. It's like so ingrained in who we wish to be, but we are not really doing a good job of like figuring out how to get there for everyone. But America is a work in progress.
What about family? What does that mean to you?
Keep thinking of the Lilo and Stitch.
Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind.
um, family is everything. I think, especially, especially when I think about my Haitian roots. Like my mom has always stressed, if you have nothing else, you have your family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, family is everything. But then, as we think about like for us queers in the room, like family takes on a bit of a different a bit of a different meaning, right? It's I love the vocabulary of chosen family, of folks that you can rely on that are just like you, because oftentimes our family is not just like us.
Mm-hmm.
These people that we get to build and experience and grow up with, really, because I firmly believe in the gay adolescence. I believe in living two different lives, growing up as a child and as a teenager, living within very constricting gender roles of high school and middle school and all of the policing that comes with that, and being able to just sort of kind of become that cocoon that when you are finally given the space and time and people around you that can help you crack that cocoon and become the beautiful rainbow butterfly you meant to be, we have a whole other set of people that we can rely on, like family.
Yeah.
Help see us through. So family is the most important, and it also is so flexible as to what that means.
What about God?
What about God? I don't know. Because my family comes from a tradition of being very religious, and that's sort of been like diluted over the generations. Like my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother's generation had priests and nuns. My parents keep talking about very proudly a great uncle of mine who would visit the Vatican frequently and sit with the Pope and talk about, because he was doing a theological study on the Virgin Mary. And just having these deep conversations and writing books and studying about religion, what that means. but we don't go to church. I don't go to church. We don't even go for like Christmas and Easter anymore. Like we used to. It was like the last holdout of like religiously showing up. But I can't, because of how I was raised, I can't say that God doesn't exist. My mom always says, she always asks, like, how can you look at a rose and not think God exists? Um, but I know that what God is supposed to be, and it's supposed to be like faith is supposed to be hope and security and safety for folks. It's supposed to be a thing that guides us through life. It's supposed to answer questions that don't have answers.
Yeah.
And God could be any of those things and can show up in any ways. God, I think, unfortunately, is co-opted in different ways by different folks. Sort of beautiful, bearded, long-haired white dude named Jesus, right? Like is sort of on everybody's wall, but what is that? I mean, he was Jewish and Middle Eastern and probably pretty brown.
It would be hard to imagine a white dude looking like that in Galilee gaining a following, quite honestly.
Just like sipping wine at brunch, just like doing, yeah, like no, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What would people be surprised to learn about you?
um, where did I put them? I walk really well in heels.
I'm not surprised at that. What is your drag name these days?
Oh, Morgan Michelle Delis Beauvais, full name. There's an alternate like personality named Pena Pineapple. She's kind of fun. But yeah, those are my drag personas.
I love it. I always remember there used to be was it Sajida Papeles?
Gina Paperlees, yes. Oh my God, that is so funny. I haven't thought of her in a while. That, you remember I got that from the side of a paperclip box.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Mm-hmm.
Spanish translation of.
I love it. I love it. How can people support you?
Keep pushing me. keep pushing me to like think deeper and talk more and ask more questions, and learn more. I mean, I've done the thing sometimes, so especially right now with social media, like a lot of things are, white folks need to do this and white folks need to do that, and non-black allies need to do this, and oftentimes because of however I was raised, or ways that my positionality works in different places, I often realize like, oh, I need to do that work too. Like that totally applies to me. Like I need to do that. So I've worked on transforming my social media into a learning space. And I already had friends who were very diligent about posting and reposting things that were educational and kept us grounded in the movement, and really just like pushing me to think about things in such different and awesome ways. So I appreciate that. I appreciate having to log on and like, yes, I'll like somehow occasionally fall through a rabbit hole and end up looking at like abs and things.
It's like, what is he gonna say right now?
I think the correct academic professional language is thought. A thought, yes. But
I've seen that term, yes.
yeah, but I appreciate being pushed to think about things differently. I love that. I like, how else can I be supported? I don't know, just being kind and forgiving. Like I think we're all gonna mess up real bad through all this, and so knowing that we can mess up in a place of trust, and see those opportunities as learning opportunities. I think that's hard because failing sucks. It sucks. And it's really tempting to retreat. But being in an opportunity in a space where like failings can become places to get better, I think that's really important. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Miss Pineapple, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you for taking this time and sharing some of your story with our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. It was a pleasure to share.